500?
500 what, douchebag?
500 street fights and you can consider yourself a legitimate tough guy. Of course, along the way, you stop thinking about being tough and all that. It stops being the point. But then...
Look, I got no problem with you, all right?
I'll tell you, you learn a lot of things on the way to 500. None more important than this.
Hey guys, it's about time we started covering Vin Diesel on this channel. Now, he was the next era of action star after Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stallone. In the early 2000s, after his breakout performance in Pitch Black, he was definitely what audiences needed. He was the next muscle-bound action hero that they grasped onto. Now, his career for the most part tended to struggle a little bit outside of the Fast and the Furious franchise, and to a lesser extent, Riddick franchise. But in today's video, I want to talk about one of his lesser-known films, Knockaround Guys. I'm actually going to go as far as saying it's probably the best Vin Diesel movie you've ever seen. For anyone who has seen that movie, it's worth revisiting. I just watched it the other day. It holds up surprisingly well. Knockaround Guys is actually a mafia term that refers to a member who has very little ambition or someone who lacks success. Now, although Vin Diesel does not play the main character in this film, you could still consider it a Vin Diesel movie, as he is prominently featured throughout, much in the same way he was in the original Fast and the Furious movie, which Paul Walker, of course, played the main protagonist in that one, but you could still consider that a Vin Diesel movie as well. And more importantly, we did learn something about how he lives his life in that one.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
In Knockaround Guys, the main character is actually played by Barry Pepper, who you don't hear about too much these days. He never did quite become a popular leading man like his co-star Vin Diesel, though his potential to was certainly there. It just never ended up working out for him. So the story in Knockaround Guys opens in 1987 when his character Matty is 12 years old. It's an initiation of sorts to see if he has what it takes to be a mobster.
Matty, tonight is the night that you become a man.
His uncle, played by John Malkovich, gives him a gun and asks him to shoot a snitch who's responsible for putting his father in prison. Unfortunately, he actually knows this guy, and that's what makes it so difficult.
This is Bobby Boulevard.
That's the life, Matty. It's always the guy you don't want it to be.
So he fails this test, and he's never able to quite live that night down.
Look, you're not cut out for this, okay? We know that now.
So we cut to the modern day, or rather the early 2000s when the film was released, and Matty, frustrated by his lack of opportunity with doing something legitimate, as we see that he has just gotten turned down by the last sports agency in town, begs his dad for an opportunity to really step up and prove himself that he can take on serious mob jobs, not just some low-level errands.
I mean, if you jammed up here, there's got to be something I can do, right?
You brought us the sandwiches. What else can you do?
Told you he couldn't live that night back down in 87. The problem with the big job is that he asks Seth Green to help, who screws everything up, and that's where the real story begins.
He's half an idiot, and that is the good half.
The ensemble cast of young protagonists are all mob heirs during a time when being a mobster is not quite what it used to be, and the power structure of the mob has been severely weakened after the Fed started cracking down. The young mob heirs are on a mission in Webo, Montana, to reclaim a bag of money that went missing, rather a bag of money that Seth Green lost.
I'm gonna do everything I can to make it right.
Marbles, that voice is cutting right through me. You are unlikable.
Film critic Roger Ebert, in his surprisingly unscathing review, said, "The movie's basic question, I suppose, is whether the rising generation of mobsters is so self-conscious it will never gain the confidence of its ancestors. If it's true that the mob in the 1930s learned how to talk by studying Warner Brothers crime pictures, it's equally true that The Sopranos and all the other post-Scorsese Goodfellas stories bring in an element of psychological complexity that only confuses an occupation that used to have a brutal simplicity." As far as Vin Diesel goes, he plays Taylor, and we're quickly introduced to the type of no-nonsense guy he is. He still operates with that sense of brutal simplicity, and is cut from an entirely different cloth than his friend Matty.
The milk guy's getting paid, the potato chip guy's getting paid, the beer guy's getting paid, every fucking body's getting paid, and you look through me! You fuck!
Taylor is definitely one of the cooler characters Vin Diesel has played, but not as far as his car goes. It's a long way from Fast and the Furious. Now, he still drives a Dodge in this one, but it happens to be a van. You really can't look that cool peeling off in a van. Contrast that with how you look in a Dodge Challenger. And you really can't be in a rush going anywhere in a van. Actually, I take that back. Check out Vin Diesel in The Pacifier. Knockaround Guys covers two formulas: the fish out of water, the crew sticks out like a sore thumb in Montana, for example.
Looks like they're multiplying, Johnny. Best we keep on our toes.
And a coming of age, finding your place in this world. It's filled with several of the usual mob tropes. For example, pretty much every cop is crooked.
Cops are involved.
Dirty fucking cops. Yeah, he said cops.
Someone's a rat.
That is the motherfucker who is responsible for your pop being sent away.
Crime pays, at least for a little while.
It's a 5.
And let's not forget double crosses. I don't want to give too much away, but crap really hits the fan at the end. Let's just say there aren't nearly as many people left breathing by the end of the movie. During a test screening, an elderly woman actually walked out because she thought the movie was too violent. I personally don't think this movie's that violent, and it's not even close to all-out action. Instead, the story spends a lot of time developing the characters and takes a real interest in them.
Matty, for 99 guys out of 100, this is lose-lose.
That was actually one of the reasons why New Line Cinema shelved this thing for 2 years and just had it languish. They just didn't know how to market the film, and all the young leads were unknown at the time. You did have John Malkovitch and Dennis Hopper in the film playing mob bosses, but while great actors, they're not really the type to get audiences excited enough to see them in the theater. Besides, the focus isn't nearly on them in this film. But not only did they play mob bosses, they also played handball. Is it just me, or do you think John Malkovich is going easy on him here?
Too good. The man is too fucking good.
I get a sneaking suspicion he's holding back.
Walking off that handball court, dumping game after game to your fucking old man. Can I tell you, I could beat his ass carrying a lawn chair in my left hand.
Told you, he was definitely holding back. So at the time, New Line Cinema had about as much of a chance of having a hit on their hands as Dennis Hopper had at legitimately winning a game of handball. Luckily, the growing stardom of Vin Diesel, who'd have a big hit with Fast and the Furious and then soon after playing Xander Cage in Triple X, gave New Line a lot more confidence in finally releasing this film. Barry Pepper's star was starting to take off as well with his role in the movie We Were Soldiers. However, that didn't really help this film, as it still ended up becoming a bomb at the box office, making less money than it cost to produce. Although it did generally receive negative reviews from critics, surprisingly it got 2 thumbs up from Ebert and Roeper. Speaking of thumbs up, how about hitting the old like button here? For you younger guys out there, it used to be Siskel and Ebert were pretty much the most popular movie critics at the time and even had their own show called At the Movies that ran from 1986 to 1999. Siskel sadly passed away in 1999, at which point Ebert teamed up with Roeper and the show became Ebert and Roeper at the Movies. I'd say they generally aren't fans of the movies I tend to talk about on this channel, but at least they like this one, which was nice for a change. Usually I just take a line out of Rambo's playbook and say, "Fuck 'em." I do want to point out the writers of this film as well, David Levien and Brian Koppelman. They've literally worked on everything together since day one. Knockaround Guys is a movie they also both directed. They're currently both writing and producing the phenomenal show Billions on Showtime, but prior to Knockaround Guys, they wrote 1998's Rounders with Matt Damon and Edward Norton. John Malkovich is in it as well as a guy who's fascinated by Oreo cookies. If you guys haven't seen Rounders, by the way, you owe it to yourself. It's one of my favorite movies, and I call it the Rocky of poker movies. But anyway, let me know in the comments section what you think about Knockaround Guys, or if you haven't seen it yet, if you plan to. I'll leave a link to it on Amazon in the video description below if you want to check it out on Blu-ray, DVD, or if you've embraced the modern age, streaming.